Today I will be interviewing Todd Walma, who is the Director of Quality and Regulatory at an engineering firm in Michigan. He has some great stories and great life lessons, so I hope you enjoyed this episode. Well, thank you for joining us here today. Today we are talking to Todd Walma, who is a longtime friend of mine and leader in so many different areas. He is in the engineering field, and I could read off a long list of things that he has done, but I probably can't pronounce half of them, but we'll try. So, engineering group leader, business development leader, director of engineering, director of quality and regulatory, deacon and elder at church, and most importantly, JV and varsity basketball coach. So, Todd, thank you for being with me today. I guess let's jump right in. First question: do you have a particular leadership style that you subscribe to or use?
Yeah, it'll probably sound cliche, but absolutely servant leadership, and I'll define it a little bit. So, in my head and in my practice, it means that I will not put anybody in a totally uncomfortable situation that maybe I haven't done myself. So, and I will walk alongside with them if I haven't done it myself. So, I will make sure that we go through it together. But usually I will always have at least experienced some of what I'm asking them to experience. And then I'm not going to do their job for them. They'll know that clearly. That's the expectation. I'm not here to do your job. Why do I need you, right? If I'm going to do your job for you. However, there is a big piece of that servant leadership that says I have to understand and demonstrate if they just don't know, right? If they don't have the experience. How are they going to gain that experience unless I teach them and coach them and mentor them? So, yeah.
So it sounds like that you just used the word coach, and I know you're obviously a basketball coach. So talk to me about what the ongoing coaching looks like for you. Is that just like a one-shot deal, like, hey, this is how you do this and off you go? Or do you kind of have that be like you said, a walk-along leadership style?
Yeah, no, it's continuous. Yeah, the coaching and mentoring never stops. If you want a high-performing team, it never stops. And what's cool is obviously as they gain confidence, as they grow and experience and gain confidence, some of those things start to tail off. Some of those, really, I'll call them lower level questions and just, how to do things. And then the other fun training part that I've practiced over the years that they will learn is if they come to me and they don't have a potential solution in mind, they will walk away or walk out of my office with more work to do.
Yeah.
And what happens over time is they start to realize, wait a minute, every time I go into Todd's office and I don't have some sort of solution for whatever I've laid at his feet as a potential problem, I get more work to do.
Right.
And it finally starts to sink in.
Yes. It's funny you mentioned it. I was just dealing with another client that you and I talked about off camera, and one of the trainings that I did with them a couple of weeks ago is, we need to be solution oriented. Like if you have a problem, yes, let's look at that problem, but let's not just bring a problem and lay it on the table. Let's bring a problem and here's some of the solutions that I have to offer.
Right. Yeah. And we found this it's been several years ago, but it's like, okay, when you bring me your problem, it is still your problem. And you will leave this office knowing that it's still your problem and not my problem. But we will talk through it and we'll, discuss potential solutions for your problem.
Right.
Yeah.
So it sounds like with the servant leadership, you are also very relational as well. Yeah. Like I know you kind of come off like a hard nose, like this is your problem, but I know you better than that. I also know that you are very relational. And so how do you balance that hard nosed, like this is your problem and I'm going to help you solve it, but you're still going to solve it on your own with that personal coaching, like, hey, I'm here for you. Let's get better. So what's your balance for that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So you kind of ease them into it, right? And you know this too. You got to have those relationships where you start to ramp up some of that stuff, because obviously I've hired them, right, to develop them. And I don't want to just, turn them out and make them frustrated. So it's like, it's not that you hit them with that right away. It's like you kind of build that relationship, with other things around personal things that are going on, whatever else, and then you start to ramp up some of that other stuff. And they know it. They get it. They understand where you're coming from. And the other thing I work with every one of them is that I don't care if it's a work issue or a non-work issue. Basically, I create an atmosphere where, I am a safe zone. Call it a sanctuary office. You can come in and talk to me about anything, anytime, anywhere, without judgment. And my employees know that. And I think that obviously goes into building those relationships too. And so then they get a better understanding of, okay, work is work, but he really cares about me.
Yeah.
So I think that's huge.
Yeah. So how do you keep team cohesion? So I understand how you have a good relationship with your employees, but you've been, as I was kind of reading through your resume, you've been leaders of teams for most of your career. So how do you keep the cohesion amongst all of your people, not just you and your direct reports?
Yeah. So one of the consistent things I do is obviously you get together as a team, and you get together as a work setting and, if possible, non-work setting. So one of the things that we've always tried to do within my teams is celebrate success. I mean, that's part of it. And then player-led teams, this is the basketball coach speaking, right? Player-led teams are the best teams there are. They're the most successful teams. It's proven statistically. And so what I will try to do is get them to the point where I can sit back and they're doing the leading. That they've created the relationships among themselves and the trust amongst themselves with my guidance that, they pretty much know what to do and when to do it because they've been coached and mentored that way.
Yeah.
And then, they figure it out together. And they know that, frankly, if there's a significant enough issue, I will sit usually the first individual down, obviously, and the second individual, because there's multiple perspectives to everything, right?
Right.
There's basically partial truth and then the truth.
Which is usually in the middle.
Which is usually in the middle, right? Exactly. And then, then I'll get the two of them together, or three of them or whatever it is. And I've never hesitated to do that as far as, all right, well, again, the coaching as far as what are you willing to do about it? All right, you're bringing a problem. Great. What's your solution? Don't just cry about another person.
Right.
And, oh, by the way, have you looked in the mirror?
Right.
Usually 2/3 of the issue is you and the other person doesn't even know.
Right.
And have you even, approached the other person?
Yeah.
Have you actually taken the time to go say, and then start the conversation with, I feel, don't do the accusatory thing. You always, you never,
right.
Whatever. It's like, no, that's not how you approach the situation. It's like, hey, this is what I feel. This is how I'm feeling. Feelings just are. And so you do some coaching and mentoring from that perspective too. But no, I've had some pretty diverse teams, but pretty good experiences. So I mean, I'm sure I've got some outliers in there too.
Oh, sure. I don't think you can ever, have everything be a perfect square or a circle or whatever shape you like. But you said diversity, and that's something that I've had a lot of experience with in my career, just in the places that I've lived and worked. So I wondered, how do you manage an ethnically diverse group? Because obviously in engineering, that is probably, from what I understand, a very diverse, ethnically diverse group of people. So you may have people from multiple continents around the world, and now we've all got to come together and work together. So what are some of the things that you've done?
Yeah, so you consciously have to basically try to understand where they're coming from, if that makes sense. So you kind of got to put yourself in their shoes a little bit. I'd say the other thing is I disarm them usually right away and say, hey, look, I'm an equal opportunity offender. That's one of my standard lines with all new employees. And then I'll also tell them I am so focused on what I need to do individually in my job and your, team aspect that I am not going to recognize if you're struggling. And so you have to come talk to me. And so I set the, like I said, I kind of disarm them and then set the tone right away, saying more of the responsibility is on you than it is on me, you know.
Right.
And then obviously there's a balance in the middle there, but no, that seems to have worked pretty well. And again, you have to start to understand where they're coming from and just start building that relationship too.
Yeah. What is one of the most diverse teams you've had to lead, if you can remember where people might have been from, or religiously or ethnically, especially in the engineering field? I've got a few places and countries in mind, but I'm curious what you'd say.
Yeah. Well, probably the global team I was on, in one of my positions, where we had Germany, Ireland, I think Japan. I'm trying to think. There was multiple countries. It was a global project, and I wasn't necessarily leading the project, but just participating in that with that broader group, just from multiple different countries. It was very interesting,
Mm,
uh, just how they approached different things. I mean, and I gave a lot of kudos to the one that was leading it, because it's a term that we've used when there's some just basic level of potential misunderstanding because of your backgrounds, and like you
mm,
said, different
yeah.
nationalities and countries of origin. We call it herding cats. It's like, okay, how do you herd cats when you got to move forward, but you got so many different opinions from so many different places in the world,
Right.
and how things. And then you've got the what I'll call the at least in the medical device manufacturing field or medical device development field, all the different regulations in different countries and how they do things. So
Oh
yeah, it
man,
was
that
it was
must
a
have been
very
a
interesting team.
that
Yeah,
must have been a mess to try to like, yeah, I mean, I know, yeah, that's crazy. I didn't think about
yeah,
that, but to have all the different regulations from
yep,
multiple continents and countries that
yep,
you've got to sort through and
yep,
figure out, and then was the
yep.
final product going to all those countries as well, or was it destined for
Yeah,
a specific?
it's exactly what we were doing. We were trying to harmonize and standardize a process across the globe. Basically, is what we were
Oh,
trying to do. So,
geez.
yeah, yeah, and,
How
and and it worked. We got it to work, but
really? Yeah,
yeah,
man, that's crazy to, yeah, because when you think about, I mean, we can't even get like our all the states in the United States to agree on certain laws.
yeah,
And you're trying to get all these different countries to come together on a certain standard for a medical
yeah.
device.
And
That
I
so,
think the common denominator that really helped. I'll call it kind of the core team that really ended up creating the framework and moving it forward, was just the critical thinking aspect of several of us, and we all knew it, and you could all pick up on it. I mean, you could immediately see who was engaged, I'll call it, and who was disengaged,
yeah,
and us that were engaged created great relationships, you know, and regardless of nationality, it was just, okay, here's a critical thinker. They're going through and they're actually reading and reviewing and understanding before they provide an opinion. And you could tell immediately.
yeah,
So yeah.
they knew their stuff.
Hmm.
So, kind of jumping gears a little bit, who is one of the best leaders you've ever worked for, or I guess sat under, where you just felt like, man, this person is a great leader, and I'm going to learn a lot from them. And I guess it
Yeah.
doesn't even have to be work related.
No, it was. It was a director of quality when I was a quality manager, and we weren't even located in the same facility, let alone the same state. He was in Arizona, I was in Michigan, and just happened to be also a man of faith, also a Christian brother. And I don't care what you say, it makes a difference.
Mm,
And he was phenomenal. I mean, he would always start every conversation with "How are you?" And
mm.
he meant it, and he meant it, and you knew he meant it.
It wasn't just a kind of the passing, "Hey, how are you?" But like he'd look you in
Correct.
the eye and say it.
Right. And he could tell by your response and your tone whether you were telling him the truth or not.
So he
Yeah.
had discernment.
He had yes, he did have discernment. So, but he was phenomenal from that aspect because he would always start with the personal first, and then he would go, all right, let's talk about work. So, and I've learned a lot from that.
Yeah, just building that relational capacity,
Yep.
that trust.
Yep.
I was talking about that with somebody else about how you you can't move people unless they trust you.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's the work that you have to do before the work is you
Yep.
have to work on the trust first.
Yep. Yep. So
Yeah.
I've taken his lead to the point where any of my new team members, after we get through some of, kind of the position and the expectations and all that stuff, um, before we even leave the first meeting, I say the same thing to them.
Mm,
And I say, look, you need to know I care about you more than I care about the work and the job and everything else. And I offer, prayer. I offer it to them day one.
mm,
And again, it sets the tone that, yeah, I am a different leader, you know?
yeah. So what
And
about people who are not necessarily the same religion as you and you
yeah,
offer them prayer? How has that been received?
yeah, surprisingly well,
Mm,
because I tell them it's what I believe, and whether they uh, believe me or will follow through on, my asking them to go ahead and ask for, prayer or consideration for anything. And I'll tell them, whether you ask me or not, you're still being prayed over. and and I've gotten various reactions,
yeah, yeah, I bet.
um, but I would say a high percentage of the time, it's a little bit of shock to some of them, but they very much appreciate it.
Hmm, that's
Yeah,
cool. That's very cool. So I guess what is one of the greatest leadership initiatives that you've been a part of? Doesn't necessarily have to be something that you did, though it could be, but
yeah,
one thing that stands out like, man, that was great, and I'm so glad I was a part of that.
yeah. I'm probably in the middle of it right now as the
Oh,
director of quality and regulatory at a small startup. Yeah, we're building a new team, and it's a team of 20 somethings, and you'll laugh. They actually call me dad. So yeah. Um,
well,
and
I
it's
know that you have a couple of 20 something children, so this is probably
four.
yeah,
Yeah,
this is probably a little surreal for you.
yeah. No, but it's definitely the biggest challenge because two things are happening at the same time. I'm helping the company build its infrastructure with all its systems and procedures and everything. At the same time, I'm building the team.
Mm,
So, and there's as much coaching and teaching going on as there is individual effort, because I need them to help me create the system and the
right,
infrastructure, but they don't know what I know.
right,
And so I have to transfer that knowledge and then give them the confidence to go do it, you know?
right.
So yeah, it's the most challenging, but it's the most fun I've probably had in my career too.
Really,
So
really.
yeah,
I was just going to ask you what you speak very highly of this, and you said it's the most fun, most challenging. I guess
yeah.
what's driving that? Is it just because it's something new, something you've not done before? Is it the people that it's involved, or
Yeah, I think for me, it's their reaction when the light bulb goes on.
mm,
That's a big part of it. That
yeah,
aha stuff where they, it's that proud dad moment where you go, yeah, turn them loose.
yeah,
They've got it. So, and they keep me young, frankly. I mean, they, I don't know what they're talking about half the time, but I mean, they find it funny and their reaction makes me smile. So,
right, right.
yeah, yeah,
So I know this about you personally because we've been around each other, but you don't mind being the butt of a joke,
no,
especially if it brings others together.
sure.
I think that's
Yeah,
something you and I have in common. I don't mind
yeah.
being the butt of a joke or
I don't care. No,
yeah. So if
yep,
you guys are laughing, have at
yep,
it. Let's go for it.
right, right. I'm not easily offended. So,
Right,
yep,
right.
yep,
All right, let's wrap up with one final question. And this one, I want you to dig back as far as you need to. But what is one leadership experience that you learned the most from? And this could be a positive or negative experience.
yeah. I would say it's probably one of the leadership conferences that I went to, and obviously you do some of the personality profiling and stuff like that, which is always good because you get a better perspective on different personality types and where they're coming from. But um, I still teach it to this day, and I used it in coaching too. We talk about the victor zone versus the victim zone. And it's a tool that was given to us at this leadership conference to basically help people understand that there's certain things you cannot control,
Mm,
and to really focus on what you can control and also to focus on what you can influence.
mm,
And then the balance between control and influence, and then the stuff you can't control, that's everything else out there that's spinning around, put that aside. And then if everybody's in the victim zone on occasion,
mm,
but the lesson is don't dwell there.
right.
It's like, and if you want to be a victor, then you control what you can control and you influence what you can influence, and you forget about the rest.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I've heard a couple
it's
of similar analogies to that. And one of them is if you're going to fail, fail as fast as you can and then
mhm,
get it out of your system and move on.
yeah,
And then one recently that I just heard a couple days ago, which I thought was, I'm still processing how this could maybe be injected into the business world or something like that. But this was a business person, multi-million dollar company, multiple multi-million dollar companies. This person has started, run, sold, done all sort of things.
yeah,
This person has a military background as well, and he said you need predators because predators never see themselves as victims. They're always on the offense. Now, if you
mhm,
can throttle that so that you're not always just being aggressive, but
right,
if you can be the predator and the hunter in whatever it is that you're doing, you will rarely be the victim because you're going to
mhm,
see things differently. You're always going to be surveying
yeah,
what's going on around you and able to act instead of have to react. So,
hmm, yeah.
all right, final question. Final question. And let's see, I'm going to dig deep for this one. Um, am I making you nervous yet?
No, I don't get nervous.
I know you don't, and that's one thing that annoys me about you because sometimes I like to make people nervous. Um, if you could give advice to your 20-something self
Yeah,
about leadership or something that you would want yourself to know, what advice would you give a young Todd Walma?
yeah. Seek it out always and often. It's I was a proud young engineer that I had the world by the tail, and I've had this innate sense of right and wrong from the beginning, and I thought I knew it was right, and then I had some really good mentors that went, yes, but you're missing different perspectives,
Mm,
you know, and it's like, and you can't just be the bull in the china shop because you know that that's the right thing to do,
mm,
and just seeking out that, call it leadership, call it um, whatever perspective, just that more, I guess, global perspective, if you want to call it that. And my scope was too narrow. I frankly didn't care I still don't care what other people think, but there's a piece of that that's just wrong. You
right.
need to, to come up with better solutions and create a better team. You have to listen to those other, personality types and
Right.
perspectives. So, yeah, seeking that out sooner
Yeah.
and more often. So,
Okay. Huh.
yeah.
Well, wise words. Todd, thank you so much for your time this evening and getting all dressed up for me and everything. I appreciate that. This is intended to be casual. So thank you for
Yeah,
just being who you are. I appreciate your honesty, your time. And then we'll just see you on the next go around.
sounds good.
All right, man. We'll talk to you later.
Yep.